Welcome to the L&D Go Beyond podcast. Today we have Stefaan Van Hooydonk with us. Stefaan is the founder of Global Curiosity Institute, which he started about a year ago with a goal to help individuals and organizations foster a mindset of curiosity to inspire them to keep discovering and innovating. In his previous life, he has been in learning leadership roles at various organizations like Nokia, Agfa Healthcare, Philips, Flipkart, Saudi Aramco, and Cognizant. That experience spans 6 industries, 8 countries over 3 decades. So pretty much Stefaan has truly been there and done that when it comes to anything in L&D. I'm very excited to have Stefaan join us today as we'll be talking about the intersection of curiosity and learning in workplaces. Stefaan, very welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Amit. I think you're setting me up for too high expectations. Let's see where this is leading. Very grateful to be here.
Thank you very much. I think you will have all the answers. You've seen all of it. But before we get started, Stefaan, would you like to share a little bit about your L&D journey and what excites you today?
Well, I started my career in investment consulting in China, helping foreign companies setting up shop in China. And very early on, I got really excited about the notion of learning because when companies are investing in other countries, they need to either hire the right people or second the right people, and that always comes with a lot of learning and training. That's why I got rolled into learning and development, set up a business school in China, and then moved to the corporate side, setting up learning ventures, corporate universities for the companies that you've just shared. And last summer, I had the opportunity to set up the Global Curiosity Institute, and that was basically on the back of a deep thought and deep reflection I had been doing previously. Because if you're in charge of L&D or of corporate universities or chief learning officer, it doesn't really matter what your title is. Then you always find people in your organization that are constantly learning. Some people are just natural learners. They read all the time. They're part of the right networks, but also very important, they have this sense of humility. They're okay to be a constant novice. They don't say, "Oh, I'm expert such and such, and therefore people have to respect me." They are typically also experts at something, but they're always exploring more. And now the good thing is we all know such people, and maybe we are such people ourselves. But the challenge is there's only about 10, maybe 15% of such people in any given organization. I came to call them A players. And then you have kind of these A players, these striving. These for L&D professionals, these are not really the people that we're catering to. These people are happy campers whenever we're doing something, but they don't really need it. And then you have the B players, people that want to learn, but they miss something. Either they're stressed, or they have a family situation, or they've lost some muscle on the way, or society kicked it out of them somehow. So somehow they need either a manager or a process or an L&D marketing campaign or something to get going in the notion of learning in learning. And then you have C players, people that don't want to and can't be changed, but that's also a minority in most organizations.
Yeah.
So my challenge always was, how do I turn such B players into A players? And I quickly ended up in a notion of mindset. It's not about teaching more tricks and skills to those people. It's about giving them the ability to self-reflect and give them a mirror and some language, so they could reflect on whether they were curious at home or not curious in the office, and by reflecting, people often come to a decision point. Do I want to become more of it, or am I fine where I am? And I've noticed that the moment you give people that gift of language, that gift of reflection, of self-awareness, suddenly people become A players. or at least the majority of people. And that's why I was so excited to start the Curiosity Institute, helping individuals, helping teams and organizations to tap in even more to that notion of curiosity, something that we especially now need more than ever. Coming out of COVID, 21st century, the questions of the past and the answers of the past are not really going to fully carry us through for 21st century. We have to come up with new questions and also have to come up, therefore, with new answers. And that's where curiosity fits in very nicely.
Fantastic. That's a great overview of, kind of summarizing your past experiences and the big takeaway, which kind of led you to set this Global Curiosity Institute up. What I hear is curiosity is one of the critical elements of that mindset, which can help move the majority of B players into A players. And B is usually about 80% odd, maybe 75% in the nomination. Yeah. So, I mean, just to follow up on that, and we'll probably discuss this a little more in detail, but that's one of the tools that L&D should be leveraging, because it may be directly linked to the motivation level of these B players when it comes to learning, when it comes to progressing in their careers. And that's where L&D may be actually struggling. If they can change the mindset, a lot of it is going to become much simpler.
Absolutely. I think we have somehow the choice whether L&D is driving innovation, or whether L&D is more on the side of compliance. I think we have two choices as L&D. Do we want to basically, in the end of the day, do we want to report into head of innovation, or do we want to report into the head of compliance somehow? And if you have that, let's say that we want to report into innovation, or at least we want to be part of that stream of co-creating the future for our organization, then somehow we need to start empowering people. We need to start giving people tools to learn themselves. Because the things are changing so rapidly in IT, in processes. What I just shared earlier, we're entering completely new business models, new business environments. It's not up to L&D to start creating courses and creating content and delivering courses anymore. The part of that role will remain, but the big role is how do we enable people to be A players, really, to be self-propelled, to drive their journey, to become interested in reading, to share with their teams if they're managers, to say learning is good. I've seen quite a number of companies where learning is seen as non-productive time. You have work and then you have anything else, and people don't like it. People don't like people going on holidays because that's disruptive. People don't like to go to learn because that's disruptive. And sometimes people are in billable roles, sometimes not. But what if we give people the opportunity to explore for themselves? And I think that's very powerful, because the time when only the leaders were having the answers and were asking the question is over. We need to empower everybody. We need to crowdsource ideas in our organizations. It's a bit, it's hard, but it's a great opportunity for all of us. I think the opposite of curiosity for me is compliance or conformity.
Yeah.
Are we into exploration or are we into exploitation? And exploitation is to come up with an idea of the past. So somebody's developed a process in the past, and we're kind of into the business of continuation. Right. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We need both.
Yeah.
And I think what you see with startups are really great at exploration. But sometimes they fail because they don't find the opportunity, or they don't find the muscle or the processes to make it scalable, to exploit the great ideas they're having. And then you see that some really thrive beautifully, some just don't. And big companies, they often are really become good at this exploitation, but they've lost some of that exploration mindset. And how they create then that balance between the two is really key. That's why I'm often saying it's so important for companies to be intentional about their curiosity, about their exploration. Because if you're not careful, you're going to kill it. You're going to stifle it at the expense of exploitation, conformity, etc. Sometimes I'm giving in workshops, I'm giving people the choice, a little caselet. Who would you promote? You would have person A, who has been a really consistent performer, achieved all of our targets, even better. And then you have person B, who also has achieved her targets, yet had also her neck, and was engaged in a new project, but failed. And through failing, she learned a lot, and also she learned a lot for the organization. Now, who would you promote? Who should you promote? And who typically would we promote? And often the answer is we should promote number B, but in most cases we promote A, because we prefer conformity, we prefer compliance, we prefer this certainty, and we don't really know how to deal with people that stick out their neck, because they're a bit unruly, and that's hard for all of us. But that's so important, and that's why you see people are thriving, startups are thriving. The acceptance of failure. How are we dealing with that? Startups, I found in my research, are 4 times more ready to accept failures than traditional big companies. 4 times. That's amazing, no? How often when people are venturing ideas, and people often say, "Oh, time is money," or "A great idea, but try it in the weekend," or "We're not paying you to think, just we're paying you to do it," or those type of things, you know. And then people in such an environment start kind of stop asking questions, and they stop raising issues, because maybe it's not going to be accepted, or maybe I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough. So it's better to stay quiet than to come up with new ideas that could be dramatically improving things in the organization. So that's why this exploration mindset is so important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of points there. I like the idea of whether you are on the side of innovation or compliance. It kind of clearly demarcates where the focus is. While you may be doing both, if the focus is primarily on compliance, there's very little that you're supporting on innovation side. And that finally what you said is essentially about how you are building the culture to support curiosity in an organization. People feel their ideas are going to get stifled and nobody's going to listen to them. They might as well not share any ideas, and that becomes the standard. Excellent. Right. Thank you for sharing, Stefan. So let's start by maybe demystifying curiosity, or defining it, if we can do that, because I believe a lot of people would see that word very differently, depending on their context. So is it something that can be defined or demystified for everybody to understand?
Well, absolutely. I think it is hard, though. I think psychologists are still struggling a little bit about how to fully define curiosity, because curiosity is something that is a child exploring the world, all the way to an Einstein and discovering the universe, and we only have a single word to describe all of these things. Or it's it could be just looking up because somebody's knocking on the door, or the excitement at a theater for a child before the curtain goes up. So there's all kind of different notions about curiosity. And indeed, as a society, we have had a love-hate relationship with society, because sometimes we have this notion like curiosity killed the cat, where basically curiosity is a bad thing. Yeah. And you also see that, for instance, in Disney stories like Sleeping Beauty. Is a girl exploring a spinning wheel, and she pricks herself, and she gets punished for because she's interested actually in this little tool. In the Bible, where you have Eve eating from the apple of knowledge, of the tree of knowledge, and get punished by God because she's actually interested, and she wants to go the extra mile, and she knows she's going to be punished, and still she wants to do it. But on the other hand, we also see curiosity in a very positive light. We associate often curiosity with kids. Now, there's also dangers, because sometimes we only associate with kids, as if adults don't have to be curious anymore. But we also associate it with entrepreneurs, people that stick out their neck. We also associate it with, for instance, the Mars rover, this vehicle that was sent to Mars. And now we have two vehicles. Interestingly, the first one is called Curiosity. Yes. And the second one is called Perseverance. And those two really go very well together. And there I come maybe to the definition that I have created. Like, curiosity is the mindset to challenge the status quo, explore, discover, and learn. So, and with that mindset, I really want to say that this curiosity is not something passive. Curiosity is like a verb, it's an action word, a mindset that requires intentionality, that requires agency, that puts you in the position to look under the hood, to challenge the status quo, to learn, to prime your brain, to explore, to discover. And that's the positive dimension, I think, of curiosity. And talking about workplace curiosity, that should be the definition we should have. It's about challenging status quo. It's about exploration. It's about learning. It's about discovery. It's about improving things. And it's not necessarily about the negative connotations that we may have with curiosity.
I think that makes great sense in terms of how we want to define curiosity, especially in the workplace, because in some of my other readings, I have been looking at how people look at curiosity is it should be backed by some action. Otherwise, it's pure wondering. You wonder and then you forget about it. So you can do that. And is there a difference when people say applied curiosity? Or is it exactly the same that you are defining it?
Well, in my definition, it is applied. It is applied. It is action driven. And there's maybe a couple of things to say this. Something that researchers have found in the meantime, like sometimes people come to me and say, "Oh, I'm all the time curious." That's wrong. Nobody's all the time curious. And I'm not talking about when people are asleep. But you have this trait and state. Yeah. Like some people think that curiosity is a personality trait, and that that you have either the curious people or the incurious people. And strangely, often leaders behave in such a way that I've stuck out my neck. I'm in a certain position. Look at me. I've proven myself, and I'm curious. And sometimes they say, therefore, the people that are not at my level are less curious. Yeah. Now, that's kind of the personality trait mentality. But then you also have state. Curiosity is the context. The context now is really important. And you'll find me hearing often talking about the notion between nature and nurture, that nature is what the individual brings to the table in terms of curiosity, and nurture is how much the environment is creating a conducive environment for people to be curious. So that's that kind of this trait and state, and you need both. People are roughly about 50% trait. Everybody has some muscle already by birth, and that has to do with intellectual power. That has to do with what you're born with, and then things are happening. You might be curious yesterday, but if you lose your job, or if you're going to be having a manager who suddenly is a micromanager, you're just going to lose your curiosity. Yeah. In my research, I found that people that are 3 years or longer in the same role, their curiosity levels goes down. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because they not only stop asking questions, they become even more negative about their environment, as if, well, they get annoyed, I think, with the environment. And then if people are longer than 5 years in the same role, then it becomes positive again. But it's a false positive. People say that their organizations, their environments are curious, but that when you correlate that to openness to questions, I'm sticking out my neck, I'm venturing new ideas in my team, then that stays negative. They just are they're playing safe, and they want to keep their job somehow. So I think the state and trait is important. Another thing that's important is broad and narrow curiosity. I think narrow curiosity focuses on going deeper in one specialization. Like, I'm an L&D person, I'm an HR person, I'm a process person, doesn't really matter. I'm reading books about my subject. I'm working on projects. I'm part of networks in that. Now that's really great, and we need to do that. We always need to get better in our specialization. At the same time, we have to be conscious that that's going to lead to specialization, but that's not going to lead to career progression, or that's not going to lead to dramatic changes. That's going to lead to continuous improvement, but not to disruptive changes. You need broad curiosity for that.
Right.
So, and that's why I'm often suggesting to leaders and actually anybody, start reading things beyond your field. If you're in a bookstore, why don't you buy the book next to the book you want to buy, and explore and go beyond your. So try to be this constant novice in going further and deeper. And then the third dimension, probably important, is the difference between productive. You alluded to that in your point already, the difference between productive and non-productive curiosity. Productive curiosity, let's talk about non-productive curiosity. Non-productive curiosity is, well, the word says it itself, is curiosity which does not lead to something in the workplace, even in the private space. It's like sitting in front of the television with a remote control, and just flipping channels, or often everybody will have experienced this internet rabbit hole experience. You go online, and 3 hours later, you're still online, and you've forgotten what your initial question was. That's unproductive curiosity. But productive curiosity is curiosity that starts with a question, and that has focus in trying to get an answer to that question, and that has discipline throughout in making sure that you get there. And that's productive curiosity. And an INSEAD professor, Spencer Harrison, has found that actually productive curiosity for senior executives leads to both better exploitation as well as new exploration. So curiosity is not only exploration into the new, but it also helps you improve your base and your exploitation part, your operational part of your organizations. So I think that's a great dimension.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And I missed to acknowledge that, when you earlier said, somebody who's consistently learning or constantly learning, and also behaving as a constantly behaving as a novice. So there is this notion of people who are reading and learning more and more. They are actually discovering how little they know. So they are happy to just say, we don't know, and, keep learning again. So I think there is something in there. But I like this idea of productive curiosity. And I think that's something which maybe organizations can consciously focus on, how to develop that structure or mindset of productive curiosity. Maybe that's the direction that they should be going in.
Yeah, absolutely. And some companies are trying to do this really well. I see, especially in L&D, I see two schools of thought in approaching curiosity. Again, curiosity is still an early adopter story. Not everybody's doing it. Many organizations are thinking about it, but few have actually started going on that path. Now, there's two schools of thoughts. Again, one would be more on the nature side, and a few of them will do that, and the majority is focusing on the nurture side. Now, let me start with the nurture side, where I remember when I was talking about the environment, creating the right environment for people, the conducive environment for people, the curious. So curious organizations or curious processes would be, let's talk about the L&D environment, or organizations which would open up their, provide more tools for learning. Or some companies have found that in the past they might restrict some content for certain target groups in their organization, and they suddenly say, well, this is crazy, let's just open it up for anybody. Some companies are saying, let's not only train people for their current role, but also allow people to prepare for their next role. Some companies, they might be more inclined to say that learning is productive time. And we celebrate people learning. We just see it part and parcel of the organizational success, that we allow people to invest in their future, because we want to keep our customers happy not only today but also tomorrow. And these organizations would kind of make it easy for people to learn, create the right tools, create the right environments, give time for learning, etc., give space for learning, maybe even create environments for people to share their knowledge. I like what, for instance, Google, they have created this Googler to Googler program already quite a while ago. Something that we replicated at Flipkart, where we called it the Flipster to Flipster program, where we invited into our staff to share their knowledge. I've been always a great believer in the notion, like I was my last job at Cognizant, 300,000 people. I was shouting all the time from tops of the building, saying, I'm the proud owner of 300,000 trainers, because everybody's got something really important to share with at least one other person. So the role of the L&D group was, how do we enable that people start communicating better with each other? So that's the nurture part. And there's good examples there. Novartis is doing really a great job there. PepsiCo is doing a great job there. Pratt & Whitney is doing a great job there. Google is doing a good job there, etc. If you want to, we can kind of deep dive in some of those companies. And then you have the nature side of companies. And there's only few companies are doing that, but I think they're really onto something, because the nature means that, are we going to help people develop their muscle of curiosity? So these companies would probably have a growth mindset vis-a-vis their employees, saying that we might have recruited you, Amit, in our organizations, and you might have had a great attitude when we might have recruited you because of your attitude and your skills, but we're conscious that your attitude is sometimes on a high, and sometimes because of family situations, because of some situations, might be on a low, and we're here to help you grow your muscle. And these companies are also conscious of the fact that the companies might, or individuals might have lost their curiosity muscle along the way. Because of various reasons. So these companies are actually actively investing in their employees, in allowing them to be more self-aware, or having them do baselining tests around curiosity. Many people are taking my curiosity diagnostic. It's free online, anybody can take it, and using it in their own organizations, and they're comparing each other. They're priming people to say, okay, how good are you, and where can you improve, and how can you improve? So these organizations, Merck is a great example. They're training both individuals, but they're also using all kind of tools to train teams on how to become better at collaboration, doing better brainstorming with each other, checking their biases more readily in the team, which all the things that might be holding back the team from really going full out in the balance of exploitation and exploration. So those two dimensions are really important to raise in what companies are doing now in taking. And maybe the last one, I think what I said about self-awareness, I think there's two very good examples, I think. I found this in two companies, McKinsey, we all know McKinsey, and Fiskars, a company that is involved in a Finnish company, and it's now global, and they do all kind of gardening tools, and they've grown into many other things that people use in their homes. And in their management development tracks, they have been focusing heavily on the notion of self-exploration, self-awareness, self-reflection. Now, remember, in most organizations, when you talk about management development, it's about teaching external stuff. We teach strategy, we teach finance, we teach operations, but we don't really help people or give people tools to become more self-exploration minded. Who am I? What's my purpose? What are my personal values? And these programs have been extremely successful in those organizations. And I think those companies are really onto something, because that's the basis of curiosity. You need to have a strong spine, a strong knowledge of yourself before you can face the world, I think.
That's very, very interesting, because otherwise, we may be doing a lot of talk about curiosity and building some other systems, and maybe it is even more important for the leadership team to go through those sort of programs. Does it align with what organizations should also be providing, like psychological safety in an organization, or it is essentially an overlap with that as something that you're creating? Because people who are more self-aware and who have been able to explore a lot about themselves and think about it are also the people who would be better at providing psychological safety at work.
Yes, I think these terms, they link to each other. We have psychological safety, we have growth mindset. For me, curiosity is growth mindset in action. And psychological safety, openness, learning culture, diversity are all parts of the same puzzle, I think. When I'm doing I have two diagnostics. I have one diagnostic which I do for individual, and then I have another diagnostic where I'm scanning the environmental aspects of curiosity through the culture, processes, practices of organizations. And I have actually psychological safety as one of these 9 dimensions, which I check with organizations, next to openness, next to innovation orientation, next to role models, diversity, and some other dimensions. So they link to each other, and because all these pieces of the same puzzle are pointing towards future-driven organizations. Now, what you're seeing now in terms of the organizations are living shorter and shorter lifespans. Like in the 1960s, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 50 years that the company was, and nowadays it's into a much lower number. I need to double check the number, but I think it's somewhere between 10 and 20 years of the life cycle of an organization. And I think that's largely because these organizations have a great idea in the beginning, exploit it, but somehow do not have the right curiosity, do not have the right mentality, muscle, or don't take that opportunity in a volatile environment to keep innovating and to keep exploring. And that's
probably a business case enough for curiosity, because essentially otherwise you'll get disrupted. Yeah, absolutely. And you see every industry is just being disrupted. And look at Google; they're getting into healthcare. And you're talking about the digital space. Suddenly, you don't need to be a huge company anymore to drive innovation. Innovation will come from small teams, small organizations, and sometimes coming out of the positive woodwork, coming from spaces that we didn't expect in the past. Yep. So, Stefaan, absolutely, and I think I'm very happy to hear that it's picking up. Still it is in the early adopter domain, right? But more and more organizations are doing it, and you shared some names of organizations who are doing this. Maybe after the call we can get some links and we can share it when we share the podcast with our audiences, so they can go and see those. And you also touched on, you have 2 types of tools which can help organizations. Individuals measure their own curiosity, and also organizations measure that. Is that one of the ways that we are measuring curiosity today? Are there any other measures? Is there some sort of data that can be shared on it, which can support or suggest that this is what organizations are doing on curiosity, how is it helping them, etc. So is there any
Okay.
data related to measuring curiosity in work, and how is it supporting people?
Well, there are a couple of tools out there. There's only few tools that have been developed so far to measure curiosity in organizations. I've been created my tools based on psychology research and work with a couple of PhD students to really kind of create state-of-the-art curiosity. On the individual side, I have 3 dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
I have intellectual curiosity that I check, and that's what often people think of as curiosity. It's the curiosity linked to science, linked to academic exploration, even children pursuit. Mm-hmm. But I've added 2 other dimensions. One is empathic curiosity, which is something that's really important in the workplace. How interested am I in others, in my peers, in the people that are around me, in my customers? Kind of empathic curiosity, I have an extra dimension. And a 3rd dimension links to the awareness we spoke about earlier. How much am I interested in myself, my biases, my beliefs, my limiting beliefs, my purpose, so these are the 3 dimensions I'm checking in. And then I have this organizational scan. Now, it's still early days in terms of research that I have, or that some business academics are engaged in. Now, some trends are coming out already quite interesting. For instance, I've now scanned 16 multinational companies and a number of startups, that the people that are, well, a couple of insights. First of all, some demographics in our organizations are more sensitive to the positive or negative aspects of curiosity. People that are under 30, for instance, they feel 2 times more micromanaged than the people above 30. And they also question about 2 times more their organization's willingness to innovate vis-a-vis the older people in their organizations. So that's one dimension. An interesting case also about middle management. Middle management favors exploitation over exploration. And they're about 4 times less ready to say that curiosity is positive for their organizations if I compare that with first-line managers or senior executives. And it's not strange often, because middle managers are there to do the job that senior management has kind of set forward, and they're all about efficiency. They're not about challenging the status quo, because that affects bonuses and that affects their operations. Another dimension, probably an important one, is something that I mentioned already about length in a role. If people are longer than 3 years in a role, their curiosity goes down. Another insight, I think, is an important one: the importance of leaders. Because leaders have, and I call it the shadow of a leader. And the shadow of a leader, that the shadow that a leader casts on her or his team, can be either positive or can really stifle curiosity. When I was at Cognizant, we did I had a beautiful team of data analysts in the university, and they looked at all kind of data, and they found that, and it's probably not something specific for Cognizant, it's something kind of relevant to, I think, any leader in any organizations. The more the leader learns, the more the team would learn. And the less the leader would learn, and learning is a broad term. It's not about just going to courses. It's about reading books. It's reading abstracts, listening to anything that might be available, any information, knowledge that the leader would be. So if the leader learns very little, the team also would learn very little. So that's the shadow of a manager. So it's so important for a leader to have a growth mindset, to have a curiosity mindset, her or himself, because when he or she does, they're going to talk about it. Oh, I've read this article, or have you observed this, or I found out something I didn't knew before. And linking that to what I call management humility.
Yeah.
The manager saying that I don't know everything. And what about kind of inviting the team to also come up with the right questions and to come up with the right answers? Right. Creates an environment. Now, it's a correlation. There's no causation, because in every team you have people that are not sensitive to the manager's learning behavior. Mm-hmm. If you have A players in your team, the A players, remember we spoke about it in the beginning of the podcast, they would learn anyway, regardless whether the manager learns a lot or learns little. But the majority of people are following the behavior of the manager. That's why it's so keen for an organization to really do research and to look at data. How many of our managers are really interested in learning? Because you can bet on it. Yeah. If the manager is just focused on exploration for him or herself and is not interested in growing knowledge, or it feels fine, even confident or overconfident with her own skill set and everything, then the team, this person would do a disfavor to the team.
Yeah, no, I know, and it is pretty evident actually, but these are great trends from all the research that you have been doing, spot on with the manager part, and I have been experiencing that myself as I've increased my own learning in the last 2 years. I can see it is possibly impacting the team as well. Fantastic.
And I'd love to add a little, two more little things. I found. For instance, senior executives. Remember when I said about I'm checking in my individual diagnostics, curiosity, intellectual curiosity, empathic curiosity, and self-reflective curiosity.
Yes.
The more senior people are on average, the lower their score of self-reflection.
Okay.
I think that's something nature and nurture. If you're in a senior position, that typically you get promoted because of something you did in the past. And managers in many cultures are supposed to have the answers. And some managers are paid to speak, or paid to have an opinion. And they're not in all cultures. It's appreciated that they say, I don't know. I'm just paid the big bucks, but I don't know. So somehow this self-reflection dimension is on average lower for senior executives versus other people in the organization. That's also something to watch out for. And again, the more you're aware of yourself, the more you can steer it.
Yeah.
And that has to do with groupthink, and that it's about biases and beliefs and culture of an organization.
Yeah. I think great point, absolutely. And I think in an organization, we need to have this communicated well from the top leadership, so that it settles down as a expected outcome sometimes, that the leader can say, or a manager can say, oh, I don't know about this, but happy to learn. Because unless you bring smarter people on your team, as a team, you won't really grow. So, and managers don't really have all the answers when the situation and knowledge base is so dynamic in almost all industries.
Yep. But it's hard sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
But what I've also noticed with first-line managers, so the managers that are managing individual contributors, of all the data that I've collected so far, about 77% of them are not asking for reverse feedback. So 77% of them are not asking their team members, how am I doing, dear team member? How can I improve as your manager? We're very good at giving feedback, but we're not so good at asking feedback to the people below us. If people higher up in the organization, this changes. If at middle and senior management levels, people, about 46% of the managers versus 23% of the non-managers would ask for that feedback, but it's still a minority, because we might be afraid of the answers, or we might not be sufficiently humble. in asking that questions. People might be afraid, or maybe people might think, oh, I don't respect you well enough for your opinion, because you're here to do things and I'm the thinker and you're the doer, and that puts people, I think it's a missed opportunity, especially in a knowledge environment and even beyond.
Yeah, no, I can completely relate with that. And I think, yes, managers need to open up a little more and possibly seek feedback, because they will also grow that way. Very interesting. Stefan, I want to get to the, what is the role of L&D, side of it? We did talk a little bit about L&D earlier, but do you have anything that you can share with L&D folks, that this is what you can do to orchestrate curiosity, or, how can you influence it in an organization if you're looking to create a culture of curiosity, whatever is the initiative that L&D can really take up? I know earlier you talked about, innovation versus compliance. Which side are you on? And that kind of gives them an idea that this is important, but at the same time, how do they go about doing it?
Okay, that's a beautiful one. I'm actually working with quite a number of learning and development and HR teams. And for me, the first dimension is try to embrace curiosity first within your team. Mm-hmm. If everybody within L&D believes in it, then it's much easier for you to kind of to take the flame out to the rest of the organization. So baseline curiosity in your own team. Find out about your own individual curiosity levels, but also the environmental factors within L&D. So start with yourself, and then explore curiosity. And once you've done that, you will have enough knowledge and appreciation of this notion of curiosity, of exploration, and that you have the right lens to look at your processes, how your processes, your practices, your culture, your push versus pull mindset. Are we in the business of pushing courses? Are we in the business of creating the right environment so people pull knowledge because they're so desired? Are we favoring more narrow learning, or are we favoring broad learning? And then the next dimension, I think, is an important one, is explore training on curiosity. Remember when I spoke about the nature and nurture? Don't be afraid to train people on curiosity. Give people that language. It follows a slightly different design principle vis-a-vis primary and secondary skills, but it is absolutely possible to train people on curiosity. And then once you've done that, then you could start being creative around how do we have to create the tools, the learning, the solutions that we're having to incorporate more curiosity. For instance, and then you champion it, and then you scale it, and you go beyond. For instance, Zurich Insurance is a great example. They've created curiosity champions. They've looked in business, and they've found now 170 people across all their businesses outside of L&D, and they're taking the flame forward in their organizations. That's one way of doing things. Novartis is a great example. They said, okay, let's take a big goal and say 5% of people's time, 100 hours per year target for people to learn. They're not there yet, but at least they have this aspirational goal, and they made it easy on the tools. They're a good example of a company setting up the environment, the nurture part of things. And I think these are some baseline. Review your status quo, train people on curiosity, relook at your solutions through the lens of curiosity. Are leadership development programs, do they have some curiosity element in it or not, for instance? Are onboarding, etc. And then champion curiosity, I think, is an important one.
Yeah. So if I were just also, extend it, how do you reward curiosity? So L&D can do only so much, but in terms of creating that environment in which people feel, yes, it is a right trait to possess, and if people who are showing that trait are being acknowledged, recognized, rewarded, whatever is the level that an organization goes to, are there ways that organizations are doing it which others can learn from?
Well, there's a couple of examples that you have the typical examples of a Google or a 3M. A 3M, they're allowing 15% of their employees to tinker with projects that they think is worthwhile. Personally, they think is worthwhile. Google has a 20% project where they're allowing about 1 day a week that people can do things that individuals think is worthwhile. One example. Let me think of some. Other examples. I'll come to you back in a second. The most important thing, I think, is the direct leader. If the direct leader recognizes, people follow leaders, they don't follow companies. If the leader behaves in the most curious way and is empowering the employees in co-creating questions, co-creating answers, to have this openness, that people feel that they are heard, that people feel that they are growing, that they're exploring, on top of exploiting. There's nothing wrong with, you just don't have to be crazy and going in all kind of directions. So I think that's really important. So it's down to the manager really, in combination with the individual to drive this, and link that to the A player, B player notion. I think it's an important thing. Now, maybe an extra thing to mention about A players and B players, this is not a personality trait. You might be an A player today and a B player tomorrow because the environment is influencing you. Put a Steve Jobs in a GE type of a company, and he would have been a loser. He needed that environment in his Apple to thrive as an individual, and we all have that as individuals. So don't think I'm an A player, I'm going to be forever an A player. And it's up to the manager to really stretch people and to get people into these A player stages with L&D, with HR. I've seen a lot of beautiful companies that are recruiting more for curiosity, that have really specifically curiosity as a track in their recruitment process. Are we recruiting curious people because we want to have them? Are we recruiting? Do we have in promotions? Do we have curiosity as one element to indicate the requirements for promotion, etc. Every company is different. But with the right mindset, companies can really turn things around. It doesn't take a lot. That's what research has found. Research has found that curiosity is much more important than previously thought. Companies can change by tweaking some parts of your organizations. You can actually have really important changes, really important positive changes. And also, more negative finding was that although many managers say they support curiosity, actually many stifle it. So that's
fantastic. I think great points there. What I was kind of trying to structure them into my mind as if you can hire for curiosity, that's big one. Most of it is about the manager, the line manager, your immediate manager. If they can display, if they can themselves be curious, and if they can encourage curiosity, that's probably the biggest recognition or reward. Of course, if you have other rewards, etc., that would be helpful. But at the same time, promotion could be a big reward if you are able to promote people on the basis of curiosity, and of course, not at the expense of the exploitation part.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that you would want to bring up? I'm sure the domain is huge, and I know you were writing a book on it, so there's a lot to cover. But
yes,
related points.
Watch this space. I'm next April. I have a book coming out on the workplace curiosity. The working title is the Curiosity Manifesto, on how curiosity helps individuals and companies thrive. And I'm talking to so many thought leaders innovation professors, psychologists, curiosity researchers, company executives, startup entrepreneurs, and so trying to create quite a number of cases and continue to demystify the notion of curiosity. This is a startup. This is not a startup. This is something that's not mainstream yet. Mm-hmm. Yet many organizations are starting to wake up, because now post-COVID, we realize we don't have all the answers anymore. Business models are changes, services are changing, competitive landscapes are changing. We need to find this balance. We've been so good at exploitation, and the 20th century was all about exploitation, and we've lost that exploration mindset. And you see that in our management styles, in our HR policies, in the way we do strategy in many organizations. It still favors more the notion of exploitation. Yet you see that those companies that open the window towards exploration, towards curiosity, and are intentional about this, are proactive about this, not just say we were curious, but are really taking measures to embed it in their processes and practices, you see they really thrive.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's an area which is gaining traction, and I'm sure it's going to become more important going forward. Super excited by that book of yours, Curiosity Manifesto, working title, but we look forward to that in April. I'm sure it's going to be a great read. For today, thank you so much. And not just for this, but also because we participated in your survey as one of the beta companies in early stage. And we were very happy with what we got out of that. So I think it's given us some direction on how to take our own curiosity journey. So it's been very helpful. But fantastic conversation today, Stefan. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. You have a great day.